Hi, my name is Renee, and this channel is dedicated to raising awareness about coercive control and cults. I'm a teacher, a mental health practitioner, and I lost my daughter to a destructive cult. And I don't want to see anyone else go through what I have. And I don't want to see anyone else coerced into a destructive cult like my daughter has been. That's why I'm really passionate about explaining how these dynamics work. The idea of this video is to address some comments that appeared underneath one of my discussions. Here's one of them. Yes, weak people who are promised happiness, peace, love, belonging, relevance, all the things we work for, are theirs for just saying yes. Refusal to carefully analyze information will get you into a cult, radicalized religion, relationships with evil people, or crime. Most of us know kooky when we hear it. And here's another comment. Most of humanity never gets coerced into a cult. Everyone has vulnerability and misfortune, but most of us see people like Bhagwan Shi, Ranesh, Marshall Applewhite, or Mother God and see the red flags. Intelligent people who think all you have to do is believe and trust can maybe do calculus but can't survive. Wisdom and intelligence are two different concepts. These comments reflect a common perspective, and I get it. It's easy to believe that we're immune to manipulation because we think we will see the red flags. But the thing is, cults don't recruit people by waving flags around. They don't say, hey, join us and ruin your life. They promise solutions to problems. They offer connection, purpose, things we all crave at some point. And I also want to challenge this idea that joining a cult is about refusing to analyze information. Cults are experts in psychological manipulation. They don't give you the full picture up front. They use sophisticated tactics, which include love bombing, isolation, and fear to bypass critical thinking. And this can happen to anyone. At the end of this video, I'll explain the neuroscience behind this. First, let's debunk the myth that only weak or unwise people join cults by looking at some real life examples of highly intelligent, accomplished individuals who were drawn into cults, not because they were gullible, but because they were human. Okay, let's dive in. Let's start with the classic, the People's Temple, led by Jim Jones. This group gained a reputation as a progressive movement that was focused on social justice, racial equality, and community service. Very noble qualities. Jim Jones encouraged people to be socially responsible and challenged capitalism by promoting living off the land. People who were attracted to this lifestyle were not simply saying yes to a vision for a better future that they weren't willing to work for. As for analysing information, many Americans were living in fear of a nuclear war at that point in time. So being part of a movement that encouraged tolerance can be viewed as a really rational decision. It attracted people from all walks of life, including, as an example, someone called Dr. Lawrence Layton, who was a prominent scientist who worked for the National Institute of Health, and his wife, Lisa, a German Jewish refugee who had fled the Holocaust. The Layton family, like many others, believed they were joining a cause that could create a better, more equal world. They were not just saying yes to the promise of happiness, peace, love, and belonging. They were determined to work for ideals that were important to them. But Jim Jones used this idealism against them, isolating members from their families and demanding complete loyalty. Over time, he tightened his grip through fear, paranoia, and staged loyalty tests. Even highly educated and accomplished individuals like the Laytons found themselves trapped in a web of coercion. The tragic end at Jonestown, where over 900 people lost their lives, reminds us that intelligence and good intentions are no defense against manipulation. Next, let's talk about Stephen Hassan. Steve was a bright, ambitious college student when he was recruited into the Unification Church, also known as the Moonies. At the time, he was 19 years old and was dealing with the loss of a romantic relationship. Like many young adults, he was searching for meaning and direction in his life. The Moonies didn't come to him wearing cult labels. They presented themselves as a group of caring, like-minded individuals offering friendship and purpose. Steve was love-bombed with attention and validation, a tactic cults use to make recruits feel like they are special and valued. Over a short period of time, he became deeply entrenched, even cutting ties with his family. It wasn't until a near-fatal car accident and an intervention by his family that he was able to escape. Today, Steve is one of the leading experts on cults and coercive control, using his experience to help others understand how these groups operate. He was so shocked by the extent of the mind control tactics that had been used on him that he has dedicated his life to understanding the phenomena and helping prevent others from going through the same. And then there's NXIVM, a so-called self-help group organization led by Keith Raniere. NXIVM attracted a number of high-profile members. So what drew them in? Raniere positioned NXIVM as a personal development program promising empowerment, success, and enlightenment. And there are some groups out there that legitimately offer these. So it's not always easy to see from the outside which ones are false and which ones aren't. Members were told that they were joining a group of thinkers and achievers, but behind the surface, NXIVM operated as a coercive, abusive organisation. Raniere used tactics like gaslighting, blackmail, and sleep deprivation to control members. Some were even branded with his initials as part of a secret sisterhood. The case shocked the world and exposed how even the most successful individuals can fall victim to manipulation when they're searching for purpose or belonging. On a podcast called Cults to Consciousness is a really great interview with an ex-member called Mark Venetti, in which he gives insights into how he was screened and profiled behind the scenes before anyone from NXIVM actually directly approached him. There are actually several meetings where people were talking about the best way to recruit him, to a point where pretty much he had no chance. They wanted to recruit him and they worked on a method to do so. It took years for Mark to realise what was going on behind the scenes. And when he did, it took even longer still to help expose the group. So we can start to see the pattern here. Cults don't prey on weak people, they prey on human vulnerabilities. Whether it's a passion for saving the planet and environmental issues, or social justice issue, or even just a search for meaning or a drive for personal growth, these groups know exactly how to exploit our deepest values and emotions. It's not about intelligence or education. It's about being human. And it's good to remember cults are not just people like Bhagwan or Light or Mother God. Cults are everywhere and they can take on every single form, from the smallest business to your local sporting club. Cults are not defined by ideology, they're defined by a dynamic that uses coercive control, which I define as being either cults with a big C or cults with a little c. If you want to know more about that, then I'll post a link to my website in the description below. Basically, what I do is I analyze groups using 12 key features that are set out in a rubric which translate to an overall ranking of 0 to 10. 0 being harmless cults and 10 being the most destructive. And the criteria includes things like controlling information and deception, which are not obvious things. People don't know when information is being kept from them. People don't know automatically if they are being lied to. If we did, no one would fall for these groups. And also, something that happens a lot is that, like with the NXIVM example, people are actually under surveillance and screened before they even meet a member of the cult. This is really deceptive and harmful behaviour. If I could, I wish I could turn back time and have conversations about this with my daughter, but I can't. So I'm having these conversations with the public so as other people are aware and can learn from these experiences. And sometimes commentators accuse me of being anti-religious, especially when I talk about Christian cults, which is a real misunderstanding of where I'm coming from. I was raised Catholic and I have a lot of reverence and respect for the Christian faith. However, that doesn't mean I am blind to people who use Christianity as a means of dominating and manipulating other people. Just because I'm Catholic doesn't mean I'm going to ignore all of the abuses that have happened in the church in the past. The church is still around and it is still promoting the word of Jesus because people have spoken out and said, hey, this isn't what Jesus meant. He didn't want people to be under surveillance. He didn't want you to deceive them. He didn't want you to fill them with so much fear that their amygdala takes over their brain. He did not want them to be filled with so much fear that their amygdala is hijacked. Jim Jones, Paul Mackenzie, and the next two groups that I'm about to mention, they all give Christianity a really bad name. So now we're going to have a little bit of a closer look at groups called JMS and SCJ and how they recruit members. These groups don't rely on chance encounters or obvious pitches. They use calculated, deceptive strategies designed to exploit human vulnerabilities. More than that, they don't even tell potential recruits their real name because they know that if they did, that these people would Google them and they would find out their history and never join. Jesus Christians do the same thing. They tell people that they don't have a name, that they're just called Christians. So with JMS, they do that as well. So JMS is notorious for sending members into shopping centres with fake surveys or promoting fake events like art exhibitions. These tactics are carefully crafted to seem harmless and appealing while subtly drawing people in. Once someone shows an interest, then they're slowly indoctrinated into the group's ideology through one-on-one meetings or small gatherings that are framed as self-improvement or prayer sessions or spiritual enlightenment. Similarly, the Shincheonji Church, also known as SCJ, takes manipulation to another level. Members are instructed to lie to recruits about the group's true nature. They pose as Bible study groups or community organisations, hiding their connections to the cult. But it doesn't stop there. The leaders keep detailed spreadsheets of their members, tracking everything from personality types to emotional triggers to who their family is and what their daily habits are. Why? So they can tailor their approach to each individual. If someone responds to emotional appeals, then they'll be showered with love and intention. If they're more logical, then there'll be a focus on intellectual arguments. Cult leaders literally study psychology, not to help people, but to manipulate them more effectively. I want to really highlight this point because it's much more common than people might realise. Shincheonji and Providence are not the only groups to do this. As Mark said, he was screened and profiled for points of vulnerability that would lure him into NXIVM. And as I describe in the video, Silenced, how cult leaders use email surveillance, David McKay operates in a similar manner. In classic doublespeak, he'll preach that technology is an evil force, while at the same time using technology to monitor members and their families. Think about it. These groups meticulously collect detailed records about individuals, including survey results about personality types, personal interests, emotional triggers, and intimate details about their relationships with family and friends. This information is gathered under false pretenses, solely to identify vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Such tactics have nothing to do with genuine devotion or care. In Australia, this behaviour is recognised in intimate relationships as being an illegal form of coercive control. And in the business world, it is recognised as a blatant invasion of privacy. But when it comes to religion, especially Christian cults, there is not enough recognition that this form of surveillance is taking place. And victims are often silenced through more coercion, like being labelled as devil worshippers. Jesus did not instruct his disciples to bully, lie, deceive, and coerce others. I'm surprised more Christians are not outraged at this behaviour that goes on in some cults. John's Gospel says that people will know we are Christians by our love. Name-calling, stalking, spying, deception, and manipulation are not expressions of love. And this is why it is so important to understand that joining a cult isn't about being weak or foolish. These groups are calculated, professional grade tactics to bypass critical thinking and exploit universal human needs like connection, purpose, and belonging. They study psychology. They make notes on potential recruits using covert surveillance and monitoring behaviours to help them achieve this. In other words, they deliberately and execute methods designed to track unsuspecting victims. Awareness and prevention are the best options. However, even then, it does not come down to simply knowing what to look for. Before we wrap up, we need to talk about something that's central to understanding how cults manipulate people. It's called the amygdala hijack. The amygdala is the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions, specifically fear and stress. It's like the brain's alarm system, designed to keep you safe in dangerous situations. But there's a catch. When your amygdala is triggered, your ability to think critically shuts down. Your brain goes into survival mode, prioritizing immediate action over rational thought. That means that recognizing kooky isn't as easy as it is when someone's calm and untriggered. Cult leaders know this, even if they don't call it by name, because once they've lured their victims in by using whatever strategy suits the situation, then they'll go on to create high-stress environments. For example, they might use apocalyptic predictions, threats of punishment, or even love withdrawal to keep members in a constant state of emotional arousal. When your amygdala is hijacked, you're more likely to comply, to follow the group, and to stop questioning what's happening. But here's the thing, it's not a sign of weakness to experience this. It's a biological response that anyone can have under the right conditions. The key to breaking free is understanding how these tactics work and reclaiming your own ability to think. So next time you hear someone say, I'd never fall for that, remind them cults don't target weakness. They target the human brain. And with the right tools, with education and awareness, we can help protect ourselves and others from coercive control. But first, I guess the need for this education needs to be recognised, and it needs to be understood that this is a real issue that needs to be addressed. As you can see, I'm really passionate about sharing this message, and I do hope that by making these videos, I will encourage some discussions. And if you're inclined to share and comment, please do so. I'll see you next time.